Hello, friends, and welcome finally to your long-awaited midweek edition of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. I am Mark Heath. I am your host. I'm sitting a long way away from the mic because I can't bend my leg. With me, my two favourite friends, the boy Roscoe and the Dr. Stuart Watson, who did not sadly perform operation as promised. Probably a good thing, actually. You've just been away playing golf. We know you were injured. You were a doubt on the team sheet. How did you perform? Did you suck it up and go tiger on them?
I did suck it up. Yeah, I played all right actually. Yeah, I've had a nice few days playing golf off the back of Derby, and I'm back. I'm raring to go. I've caught a bit of sun. Can you see? It's been glorious weather the last few days.
I've not been outside for 2 weeks, mate. But, I could look out through the window. Where did you go?
I went to a place called Belton Woods Golf Club, which is a hotel course just outside of Grantham.
Nice.
That was on the way home from Derby. Did I win? Golf is always the winner. No, I've never been a great golfer, despite sort of playing for many years. But I had fun. It's a chance for me and my dad to spend a bit of time together, so that was nice.
It's the Masters this week, isn't it, Stu? One of the greatest events in all of sport. I think one of the few places, kind of settings for sport that I'd be content just to go and walk round. Stick your stadium tours. I'd like to just walk around Augusta and just look at it. What a beautiful place. They pipe in birdsong, don't they, Stu? And they paint the greens.
They do. Yeah, they do. Yeah. No, I love the Masters, and I do like my golf.
Yeah, tremendous. Someone who doesn't like golf but does like getting right on it with the lads is the boy Roscoe. Roscoe, you were on tour, KOA on tour in the fine city of Derby at the weekend. Naturally, I'm going to ask you what happened, because I know you were all out on Friday night. I set you a challenge. I wanted a picture of you next to the Clough statue, which admittedly was quite a challenge, given that's actually at Pride Park. But I think you had quite a sedate one in the end, didn't you?
It's pretty just relaxed. I think a lot of us knew we had to travel back to our homes on the Sunday, so we didn't want to go too mental because we had drivers and stuff. Of course, not me.
Yeah. Ross doesn't
obviously.
Drive.
Obviously. But that was good. So we went for a nice curry in Derby. And do you know what? I think you probably know this. A lot of listeners know this. When you have a curry, you get bloated, don't you? We just felt tired. We're all sitting there just thinking, there was lovely curry, but we just feel really bloated. A lot of them have been on the beer since like 10 o'clock in the morning. They had a pint at breakfast. I just had an orange juice, boys.
Working, responsible.
Yeah, of course. They're all on the beer very early, early in the morning. So I think by the time we had the curry about 9:30, I think they all just was like, I'm just tired and bloated. But I know it was a great weekend, and yeah, shout out to all the boys who were part of that, and it was great.
I think my favourite start to a game day ever featured Ross rubbing a dog's tummy in a pub in Derby.
Yeah, Poppy the dog in Mr. Grundy's just wouldn't leave us alone, and I thought, you know what, I was about to do my intro. It came over, wanted its belly rubbed, and it was part of the take.
It's not an it. It's a he or a she. It's a she, I guess.
Poppy, yeah, Poppy, yeah.
More
very
dogs,
friendly
please.
dog.
More dogs, please, on game day. I want to meet people's dogs. Friends, obviously, Town extended their winning run at the weekend. 7 games in a row now. 8 clean sheets. Absolutely tremendous. We've got that to talk about today. We've got accounts. We've got a new contract for a key squad player as well, plus 2 games coming up over Easter. There's a lot to get to. But I want to start with the following question, boys, and that's this. As I've just said, 7 games won in a row for Ipswich Town. First time they've done that in the same season since 1989. No, sorry, 1953-54, same season. First time they've done it since 1989, when it was spread over 2 seasons. Get that right. I've written about that this morning. And also 8 clean sheets. My question to you simply, Stuart Watson and Ross Halls, I'm going to start with you, Ross, because I know if I don't, you'll just agree with whatever Stu says. Which is more impressive? 7 wins in a row, a mighty achievement. We all know there are no easy games in League One. Or keeping 8 clean sheets, almost 13 hours. Christian Walton has kept his sheets clean, not picked the ball out of his net. He saved a penalty as well. That's the longest run in Europe all season in the top 5, the big 5 leagues, and also the EFL. 13 hours. Incredible. So which is more impressive, Ross? What would you say?
Both are pretty good, of course.
That's obvious, yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm going to pick clean sheets because, winning games is what you want, 3 points in the bag. But in those games, we've had some tough, games. Definitely the last, couple, Bolton, Christian Walton had to save a penalty. Derby did have the ball in the net at Pride Park, but of course it was offside for reasons. But I think that's the most impressive part of it. And I'm sure Christian Walton and the back line will be very happy about that and they'll want to continue that. So that's my answer, clean sheets, because I love clean sheets as well.
Don't we all love clean sheets? Especially first night when you get into bed, when you just change the sheets. One of life's greatest pleasures, isn't it? Simple things. Speaking of simple things, Stewie, what do you reckon?
Wins.
Yeah?
Yeah, you've tried to... That was a leading tone to your intro there.
Yeah.
Yeah, wins are good, but I think Ross might have been sucked into that tone, but I'm not getting sucked in, Mark. Wins are what you need in football. Winning games.
So you think
we've had periods where Ipswich have kept clean sheets?
Yeah.
In the early days under McKenna, but we've had them where they've kept clean sheets under Paul Lambert. But winning rattling out wins and turning these fine margin moments into 3 points on a consistent basis. There's not many teams that go on this sort of winning run. You've detailed the statistics and how rarely that happens. WWWs. That's the most impressive part of all of this for me.
Just win, baby. Okay. I made a right Horlicks of that, so I'll just go back over the stats. The last time Town won 7 league games in a row was split over 2 seasons. In 1989, they won 7 league games in a row under John Duncan. Last time they did it in the same season, league games, 1953-54, back in the old Division 3 South under Scott Duncan, when they stormed to the title that season. And the club record, Stu, is 9 games in a row, which was both League Cup and FA Cup, done unsurprisingly in the golden era under Sir Bobby, 1981-82. So the season after they won the UEFA Cup, they went 9 games, winning every single one. You have to say, Stu, they could break that.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come on to talk about Easter weekend in a moment's time. But yes, they absolutely could, because they're flying at the moment. Those statistics are remarkable, aren't they? Absolutely remarkable. You're talking about generational achievements here, and I don't want anyone trying to diminish this by saying, oh, it's in the 3rd tier and Ipswich's history dictates that they've been a top flight club for most. I don't care what level you're at, it's all relative, and to do what Ipswich have done over the last 7 weeks, remarkable.
Crazy, considering after Bristol Rovers, which is obviously when the clean sheet run started, there was much wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth about 4 wins in 15, and is the team good enough? Are we even going to make the playoffs? And now look what they've done. Fantastic. And of course that continued, Stewie. We might as well talk about the game at Derby at the weekend. Another 2-0 win, 3 straight 2-0 wins, another win at a promotion rival, another clean sheet, and another impressive performance.
Yeah, Kieran McKenna said afterwards that it was a performance that had a bit of everything. Connor Chaplin said it was almost the perfect away day display. And they're right. It needed Ipswich to be clinical on the counter-attack. It needed them to be resilient either side of half-time when Derby got themselves right back into it. Derby, I thought, played pretty well, to be fair to them. They were a team under pressure, scrapping to get a top 6 spot. And they had periods of this game, as I say, either side of half-time, well on top. So Ipswich had to ride that out. They also needed a key ingredient of a little bit of luck at the right moments, which earlier in the season wasn't happening for Ipswich. We had deflected goals going in. We had refereeing decisions go against Ipswich, all things like that. And how often did we keep sort of saying, well, hopefully it will even itself out, the old adage of it will even itself out over the course of the season. Well, Ipswich are cashing in that good luck credit at just the right time of the season. McGoldrick missed a bit of a sitter of a header just before half time, and then the disallowed goal, which I'm still not sure about, to be honest. I know there's people going, "Oh, there's a clear foul on Cameron Burgess near post." Not for me. It's the sort of contact and collisions that you get in most penalty boxes for corners. McGoldrick doesn't make contact with the ball. You could argue he's offside and has thrown a leg at it with intent, but put it this way, if it had gone against Ipswich, you wouldn't be happy. So that was a big moment. A big moment in the game, but overall, over the course of the 90 minutes, I thought Ipswich were really good value for another massive win on the road, just like Bolton.
And Rossi, before the game, was surprised to see that Leif Davis wasn't playing. Found out later he's got an injury, hamstring injury, picked up in midweek. So Greg Lee came in for his first start since, I think, the 2nd of January. How did he do? Because by all accounts, he was pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's never let us down, to be fair, Greg. We know he's an athlete, which I know you love that, Heathy.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, Leif Davis is a very different player to Greg Lee. Of course, he's the man who's getting us assists this year. But I thought he played really well. He had to fight up against Nathaniel Mendez-Lang, and he's a big boy as well. So that was a nice little battle between them two. But yeah, I thought he did fantastically. Maybe didn't go as forward as maybe Leif Davis would do. But for his first start in the league since January the 2nd, of course, he made a start against Burnley in the FA Cup in February. But, fair play to Greg coming in. Some people maybe was like, oh no, what's happened to Leif? But yeah, fair play to Greg. And, he's, players have come out, even McKenna's come out and impressed by his display at Derby. So well played, Greg.
Another question for you, Stewie, around this game. The first goal, wonderful flowing counter-attacking move. What was it? 11 seconds, 6 touches from Walton to the back of the net. Where does that sit in the best goals that Town have scored this season?
Got to be right up there. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Ipswich, what have we got? Broadhead's free kick against Sheffield Wednesday. It depends what's your jam when it comes to football. We talked about what we all like: diving headers, rockets from outside the box. The good thing for me is it shows that there's real variety to Ipswich Town's attack. After that Bristol Rovers game, and we were kind of picking the bones out of why Ipswich weren't picking up the wins as much as they were. Are they too predictable was something that we talked about. A lot of the goals were coming through the same route of get the ball, work the ball down the flanks, cut the ball back, score that way. They're now adding a bit more variety to their play. And rapid counter-attacks. And McKenna said afterwards that you'll struggle to find a better example. That one will be on a sort of coach's best practice guide all around the country and around the world in terms of how you can counter from a corner. Yeah, he really broke it down in the way that he does in terms of your goalkeeper coming and being brave and claiming the ball high. And then he talked about the zigzag motion up the pitch, which doesn't allow the opposition to kind of settle, and just the execution at the end of it. Really, Broadhead's crossfield pass/cross is sublime. The header from Burns is really composed as well. He has to put a little bit of power on that to find the gap. And then, Chaplin, cool as you like. One touch with his chest. It finds the bottom corner. Afterwards, he sort of played it down and went, that's an easy chance. When your teammate, talking about getting to 20 goals, when your teammates put them on a plate for you like that, that's that the finish is the easy part of it. But I think he's doing him a disservice there. That would have been easy to sort of panic in that situation, put it too close to the goalkeeper. But he's just got this knack of finding the corners of the net, hasn't he, under pressure? So very, very good goal. I'd have to go back through them all and see which other ones. I'm sure that there's been a lot of good ones, but yeah, right up there, Mark.
They scored a lot. 74 goals, isn't it, League One? By far and away the League One leading scorers. Do you know what I think added to the sex appeal of the goal, as you say, Stu, is that crossfield pass, the diagonal ball, like KVY to Macaulay Bonne. when it was at that similar kind of scenario. That beautiful lofted diagonal ball. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful to watch. And the second goal, George Hurst making it 3-3, that was obviously a very different goal, but also a really, really good finish, considering having the angle he was at, having to twist and shoot on the ball as it came to him, kind of run towards the ball and then twist back on himself. Really, really good finish, Stewie.
Yeah, the reactions, he's actually sort of had to turn, run back on himself, retrieve the ball, pivot and finish first time in its top corner. There's people on the line. That's a hell of a finish after another really good counter-attacking move, much like the opener at Bolton. It's Wes Burns intercepting the ball, this time even deeper than at Bolton. I think he was inside his own box when he nicked the ball. Morsey this time off his so-called weaker left foot to hook the ball perfectly into his pass, and that is the Wes Burns of old. We've been talking for a few weeks now about Burns getting his mojo back, having that turn of pace, having that desire to take people on, which had just seemed to have faded either side of Christmas. But I don't know what it is. He's got his mojo back now. That was electric pace to get away. You thought the chance had gone when he put it too close to the goalkeeper, but as we say, what a finish from George Hurst.
3-3 now, Rossi, for George Hurst. We talked again in that kind of Bristol Rovers breakdown as where things have been going wrong. One of the things we mentioned was consistency of selection, and there not really being a consistency, there being too much chopping and changing. And it feels like that has been a big key to this run. There has been a lot more kind of settled team selection, hasn't there, to the point where it really got to the point where the only question around the side really was who starts up top. And now with Hurst 3-3, do you feel like that's kind of answered that as well?
Yeah, he's the man, isn't he? He's the man in form, 3-3. And going back to that goal, I didn't know how good it was until I watched it back, because at the time, it's just quick, fast motion, isn't it? As Wes Burns, that was a fantastic run from him. But for George Hurst to really go back on himself and finish, I thought that was a fantastic goal. But yeah, right now, why change it? They're winning games. George Hurst is scoring goals. As players are getting tired, then you replace them. Leif Davis was the hamstring problem, so that's why Greg Lee came in. But Hurst is the man scoring the goals. Freddie, we all love Freddie, don't we? And he had a great form scoring goals himself. But George Hurst at the moment, he's improving every game. He had a fantastic game against Bolton, had a great game against Shrewsbury, and once again, he was probably pick of the bunch. Of course, it was a great team performance, but Hurst up top, he did everything you wanted him to do as a striker. So Hurst is the man.
Do you feel like that's been key for this stretch, Stewie? Kind of more consistency in team selection? It feels like the team is pretty much picking itself now.
Yeah, I think ultimately, if you said to me what's the difference now over these last few weeks, it's been the January signings. It comes down to the quality of your starting 11, and Ipswich have gone up a level in terms of their overall quality of the 11. The players that have come into the team have, I think, to a man, all proved upgrades. No knock on those that were playing before, but Nathan Broadhead in particular has added an unbelievable X factor to this team. It was him in the first 20 minutes played with a real football arrogance, and I mean that in the best possible sense of just you want players somewhere that just go out there and just believe in themselves, give me the ball. I'm better than you when I get the ball. I'm sure that his Wales debut goal has added that, and he looked like someone that was like, get me out of this division. I'm better than this. And he had Derby scared in those first 20 minutes. They didn't know what to do with him. If they got tight, he could beat them with his control and his footwork. If they backed off him, he ran at them and had them backpedaling. He looks. If he stays fit, that's the only question mark against his career so far. If he stays fit, Ipswich are going to turn a hell of a profit on him at some stage.
Yeah, and obviously Morsey and Luongo again. Luongo's done nothing but win since coming to the side. Do you think even if Lee Evans was fit, do you think that would be the way they'd go now?
I think so. Again, it's no knock on the players that have played alongside Sam Morsey previously. As long-term listeners of this podcast will know, I'm a big fan of Lee Evans, and I think he's someone that Ipswich have missed when he's not around. But for the here and now in League One, I think Luongo brings some tenacity to the party, some of that grit, some of that desire that I think are just sort of qualities that are needed for when the going gets tough. Lee Evans has got that lovely range of passing. Cameron Humphreys is clearly a very, very talented young man that's going places, but I think Luongo's just added the right sort of gritty qualities as well as being a very good technical player, of course. But I think that Ipswich won that midfield battle on Saturday. I think Derby changed both their central midfielders in the second half, which tells you a lot. Clark's added a bit of extra sort of dynamism and freshness to the right back slot. Again, no knock on Janoi Donacien, who has played a huge role in this season. And Hurst, again, no knock on Freddie Ladapo, but I think he's just maybe added a little bit more all-round qualities. I think he can run in behind. He's got that little bit of extra pace than Freddie Ladapo. So yeah, the January signings is what's taken Ipswich to a new level over these last few weeks, and it just took them a few weeks just to bed in. But they're there now, and so are Ipswich.
And just finally, before we move on from Derby, we should reflect Rossi, Connor Chaplin, scoring 20 goals for the season, hitting that 20 mark. Obviously, Andy Warren will tell him that doesn't count because he's only got 17 or whatever it is in the league. But again, that's another one of those things that you kind of have in the back of your head for a side pushing for promotion, need a 20-goal striker. And whether or not that comes in the league or whatever, and I'm sure he'd probably get there in the league anyway. But again, that's another kind of key thing for the Town to tick off almost.
Yeah, 17 is not too bad though. 17 out of those 20 goals in the league. So, but yeah, he's just a fantastic player, and Connor Chaplin. Once again, playing in a division he's too good for. He dropped down a level when he first signed, of course, last summer. The season before the summer just gone. Everyone knows. Everyone knows.
I'm with you.
But once again, he was calm and just collected for his finish, and he scored a lot of braces. He's still waiting for that hat trick, isn't he? Still waiting for that hat trick. Maybe just waiting for that key moment. Maybe Barnsley on his return to Oakwell. But he's just a fantastic player, and I just love watching him play. He's just here, there, and everywhere. And as Stu mentioned back in, I think it was October time, he's that muscle hamster. And he's just a great character as well. From I don't know if you saw what the club put out on a Sunday, from celebrating a goal at Derby to then celebrating with some kids. He's just a great player to have at the football club, and I think he's going to score more. He's top goal scorer.
Glowing plays from McKenna about Connor at the end, just calling him a fantastic character and someone who loves his football, which I've said on here before is not always the case of professional football. Isn't and in anyone in any industry, even if it's your love and your passion, it can become more of a job. But Connor Chaplin loves his football, and he's fully invested in this football club. He does all his work with the foundation and the community stuff. When I went to watch that talk with Jason Schechterly recently, who'd come over, he did a few more sessions on his second visit for the youth team players. Who was there again? Connor Chaplin came back to watch it again just so he could see Jason at the end. He is a fantastic asset for this football club on and off the pitch. And do you know what I love the most about Connor Chaplin's performance on Saturday was when Ipswich were 2-0 up and they'd broken Derby's spirits. The game was won. They wanted that clean sheet. And Connor Chaplin raced back about 50, 60 yards and made a hooked slide tackle from behind. And they did not lose their focus at all. And I thought that moment epitomised the hunger and the desire and this sort of eye of the tiger spirit about Ipswich at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else from the game, boys? Either on or off the pitch? Any notes from the road? Anything else to mention before we move on?
I'll quickly mention before Stu can round off Derby. Just the togetherness at the end, just the celebrations, the away fans were incredible. 3,000 plus, but just that togetherness. Kieran McKenna, I'll still probably mention this in a minute, but he probably the most passionate he's been. I'm not saying he's not been passionate, but he loved that win. He absolutely loved that win, and all the players loved it. And I actually had to peek behind the curtain thing here. I was at the other end. So I wanted to capture those celebrations. I wanted to sort of be there. So I had to sort of get up. I didn't run because I didn't want to make a fool of myself, but I sort of walked down and capture that moment. But it was just fantastic to see the fans, the players, and for the first time in a long time, it just felt that togetherness. And this team is special. And those fans are loving it at the moment.
Yeah, it felt like just a real proper football match, a proper occasion. There was a bit of nerves in the air, I felt, before kickoff from Derby. They felt like a team that were faltering a little bit, and there was a bit of nerves. Could Ipswich kind of harness that and turn the home crowd? Yes, they could inside those opening 20 minutes. But then Pride Park, best part of 30,000 there, came alive with a sense of injustice with the referee, and it was kind of fever pitch atmosphere. And I said this in the post-match video. Again, another marker of how far Ipswich have come just within this season is how emotionally they dealt with that. It would have been very easy for people to lose their heads and start losing their discipline and giving away free kicks and yellow cards and things. But they didn't. They kept their heads. And it was, they're just the scenes at the end were very different to Bolton, where the fans had been stuck up in the gods at Bolton, and it's not quite the same. They're in that little corner at Derby, and they're surrounded by Derby fans on both sides, and I felt like that really added to the atmosphere as well. I know we're having this debate about whether Ipswich can do something at Portman Road to get kind of the away fans nearer to the more vocal home fans in the North Stand, and that's got its logistical issues in terms of where the away fans come in and out of the ground, but it does add something to the atmosphere. It just felt like a real high stakes, proper football match, great atmosphere. Loved it. Loved everything about Saturday. Brilliant.
Fantastic. Right, let's draw a line under Derby because it was a few days ago now. And let's move forward with something else very positive, boys. I thought it was positive anyway. It was interesting. The accounts, the annual kind of test of our brain for numbers as journalists, which generally speaking, journalists hate numbers. So it's pretty much all across the board. Unless you're talking about percentage increase in knife crime or percentage increase in MP salaries, journalists don't really do numbers. But once a year, we have to, with the Ipswich Town accounts. They were out on Monday, Stu, and I ended up writing them because you were all off. So I was sat on my sofa trying to decipher it all. Having looked through it all and kind of spoken to people and, that kind of thing at the club, it feels like it was a really positive set of numbers. Whenever these came out over the past few years, it was always, how much has the debt gone up by? How much more do they owe? Oh, has it reached 100 million yet? And this time, for the first time, and as long as I can remember, it was, have you seen how much the owners have put in? How much investment they've made? So I should say, if you've not seen the accounts, obviously the accounts are released like a year behind. So these are accounts up to the end of June 2022. So kind of the Demolition Man summer and the kind of first full season or part season of the owners. So the accounts showed that the owners invested 14.25 million in that time spell. And then there's always notes at the end of accounts, which notes that since then, there's been a further 17.9 million put in. So more than 30 million the new owners have invested. And obviously that's funding various things around Portman Road and beyond. We've got the new pitch coming up this summer, all that kind of stuff. So 32 point, whatever it was, million invested. Wage bill gone up by 3 million, which I thought was interesting. And yes, the losses increased. They went up to 12.6 million. But as I understand it, that's essentially because they're spending more money. The operating expenditure went up by 9 million. So making a loss is what they expected. And there's actually a note in the accounts that says, we recognise the club is loss-making and it will continue to be loss-making, essentially until they get promoted. But the owners have got deep enough pockets to cover the losses and more. So yeah, what did you make of it? I know obviously you weren't intimately involved because you were on the golf course yelling 4 and putting for birdies and whatnot. But I don't think you can look at them. I mean, we've got used to it being such a negative thing, the accounts. But I don't think you can look at these ones and go, ugh, anything other than, wow, it's nice to see some investment. It's nice to see the right things being said. Significant investment in the notes, for example.
Yeah, we've known that there's significant money behind Ipswich and that they're investing both on and off the pitch. We've had a rough idea of what a lot of these transfer fees have been. We've seen with our own eyes the improvements being made at the training ground and at Portman Road. We know this ownership group, because of where the money comes from, will need a return on investment at some stage, but they've very articulately and openly explained how that is a long-term plan, and they're prepared to speculate to accumulate over the long run. And the first step is obviously to get out of this division. Yes, plenty of money is going in. Agents' fees have gone up, wage bills have gone up, all that sort of thing. But it's also nice to see on those spreadsheets the impact of, retail has gone through the roof. Season ticket sales and ticket income, the Ed Sheeran sponsorship money. So obviously Ipswich are working within the constraints of salary cost management protocol in League One. It will become the slightly different but similar principled FFP, financial fair play, when they get themselves up into the Championship. So this is very, very carefully thought out. And but the bottom line is there's money behind here. You've outlined those figures there in terms of £30 million. Let's be frank, that is pennies to this ownership. Mark Steed outlined from day one how, was it 700 billion or something ridiculous in that pension pot. So yeah, this is small fry for them just to get out of this division. There is more to come. That is clear in terms of the investment.
Yeah, just other kind of key things you might have missed. Season tickets, you mentioned, Stu. I think they said they made 12.7 million from season tickets, which is very, very nice indeed. Transfers, they spent 3.4 million on transfers and sold players for 2.6 million. I think that included, the main one there would have been Flynn Downs. Andre Giselle was just before the cut-off. And also in the notes again, which is kind of what's happened since the reporting period, it says they've signed players with a value of 5.9 million. So obviously we know who they've signed. And that's kind of an estimated value of those assets. So all very much going in the right direction. Exciting to look at. Oh, yes, Stu?
I've just got to correct myself. Sorry, I got slightly carried away with those figures just now. 13 billion, of which 700 million in cash was the quotes from how much is in that pension pot. But significant money.
You could make it rain for a long time, couldn't you, with 700 million in cash? I wonder if which should be over first. Would it be 13 hours? Would Town concede a goal, or would you still be getting that for? You just making it rain with 700 million in cash, just like that. Just keep making it rain. What opportunity! I'd like that opportunity, friends. If we could sort that out with Game Changer. Yeah. So good news off the pitch, on the pitch as well. Clearly, we've talked about, and more good news off the pitch yesterday, with news that one of our favourites here on the Kings of Anglia podcast, the Donacents, JD, has got an extra year on his deal. Rossi, the club have taken the option. So he'll be here through next season as well. Clearly, he's lost his kind of starting spot, which is just another one of these parts of his up and down journey, roller coaster at Town. But he's still a very, very valuable squad player. Can obviously play multiple positions, and is probably still one of the best one-on-one defenders, if not the best one-on-one defender at the club. What did you make of it? Pleased?
Yeah, of course. That was had to be done pretty much. If it's there, take the option, and I'm sure he's happy to remain at Town. He's still a very valuable player. He came off the bench for Derby against Derby, and that's his role at the moment. Harry Clark took that position to another level, but Janoi is still a key player in this squad, and I think a lot of Town fans are happy. I think I think even players have come out, even McKenna's come out and said, he's such a great character to have in the dressing room. And, he's got a great relationship with, Wes Burns, Connor Chaplin and the rest, I'm sure. You can see, even on Instagram, people, screenshotting the news, and they're all happy for him. So a very good player, and I think fans love him as well, don't they? And, of course, we love him on this podcast. So, another year with JD, and I'm sure he'll just be another key player in this squad going forward, as always.
Yeah, he's just a great guy to have in the squad, isn't he, Stewie? JD?
Yeah, low maintenance, versatile, still at a good age at 29 years of age. That was an absolute no-brainer to take the option there. He may find himself with less start time going forwards, but like you say, he's someone that's had such a roller coaster time at Ipswich Town. He looks like he'll get his head around that role in the squad going forwards. So, I think when we looked at those contract situations, I always felt it was going to lead to Ipswich taking the option on him. Pleased that they've done that sort of sooner rather than later, so he knows where he stands. And who knows? He might have a role to play in these next few games, as we saw with Greg Lee at the weekend. And as McKenna said, these squad players now, you've got to be ready because your opportunity might come when you least expect it. So, he's had a very big role in this season, and I hope that people don't forget that further down the line. If this season ends the way we hope it does, that there'll be a certain 11 that will probably roll off the tongue that includes a lot of these January signings for reasons discussed. But JD's played a very big role in getting Ipswich to the position they were in just a few weeks ago.
I hesitate to ask you this, Stu, because I don't know if you've got it to hand, but how many other players have we got in that kind of situation with options to be taken?
Bear with me one moment. I can get you a little list up.
I know you'll have a list somewhere. So I'll just chat to
geeky
Rossi.
Excel spreadsheet
I'll just chat to Rossi in the meantime. Rossi, how are you? How's your beard? Did you get your Manscaped Weed Whacker 2.0?
Yes, I did. Yeah, my missus was a bit confused. Like, what is this? And I went, it's for the nose. It's for the ears.
It's a slightly questionable device if you didn't know what it was.
Yeah. It's probably not an issue for you yet, Rossi, because you're still in the kind of first flush of youth. I don't know how your kind of nasal and hair situation is.
The ear is fine, but I've just noticed I've got a bit in, because I got my beard ear. You don't see it as much, but if that was gone, so I'm gonna have to use it at some stage and give you my review because it is.
You want to worry about it when the nose and the nose hair grows into the beard. That's when you're really in trouble. Absolutely. Manscaped has just released a new weed whacker for the old ear and nose. We've all got ourselves one, and if you want one for yourself, use the code KOA at manscaped.com. 20% off and free delivery. They are properly, and I'm not just saying this because they sponsor us, they are really, really good bits of kit, especially for gentlemen of a certain age, of which I am definitely in that age bracket now. Sort of age bracket where you go for a haircut and the barber spends, 10, 15 seconds just trimming your ears at the end. And you think, this is what it's come to, Heath. This is the age you're at now. And I think Watson's probably also heading towards that echelon now, in terms of ear and nose hair. Have I filled enough time, Stewie, for you to find this list?
Yes. I don't know if this is completely comprehensive, so it has a little asterisk next to it. But Kane Vincent-Young is definitely one. Ipswich have the option on him. That's going to be very interesting. I would suggest that things are maybe coming to the end of the road for Kane, especially with Harry Clark signed and Janoi having taken his deal. It's a shame because just injuries have held Kane back, haven't they, ultimately? Who else have we got on here? Richard Keogh. Don't know if there's an option there, but again, you would imagine he's probably served his purpose. Maybe a coaching role available for him. He certainly seems to have made a real impression on people behind the scenes and has become part of this sort of leadership group. Massimo Luongo, of course, where Kieran McKenna's just sort of said we'll cross that bridge when we get to it in the summer. I'm sure that will be dependent on where Ipswich are at, whether Massimo has managed to see out the season fully fit or not. Shawnee Aluko is another. That's going to be interesting to see which way that tips. He's obviously not been making squads of late with the players that came in over January. Who else have we got? Might be one or two of the loan players, people like Matt Penny, others like that looks like things are coming to an end for someone like him. So no sort of major key players to this team. Luongo probably being the only one at the moment.
And it sounds like Luongo aside, you'd expect most of those just to kind of move on, wouldn't you, from what we've been saying there?
I think so, very much with good wishes and goodwill as well for all of those players. But Ipswich are moving at a pace as a football club now. Again, Shawnee Aluko, I think, has started to think about maybe the next step for him. I'm sure he'll want to play as long as he possibly can. He reminded everyone in those Burnley games, particularly the away game, of his qualities and how much of a joy he is to watch. I'm not sure, sort of playing wise, he'll have a role to play for Ipswich going forwards. I'm sure they've helped him kind of start thinking about coaching and things like that. But he strikes me as someone that might want to keep playing for a little bit longer before he goes into that. But McKenna is very quick to tell you that people like Keogh, Aluko, have played very big roles behind the scenes as part of their experience and their leadership and things like that. So, they're in a pretty good place, I would say, contract-wise. And Ashton will say that he's always thinking about the moving pieces of the jigsaw, that you've got to make sure that players coming back from loan that you've got to factor in, and players, young youth players coming through and not blocking pathways and things like that. So you've got to have a certain player sort of tipping over the edge at one end to allow others to come through. And I think Ipswich are doing pretty well on that forward planning side of things.
Town are in a good place, Stu, and we're in a good place in this podcast. 40 minutes in, let's fill the final 10 to 15 minutes or so looking ahead to these Easter games. First of all, before we get to the games, is Easter a thing in your respective households? Have you got eggs aplenty for your loved ones, Stewie? I would imagine your young daughter Aya will be expecting legions of chocolate, will she?
Yeah, copious amounts of chocolate. All that Easter egg hunts in the garden.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll do a little, do some clues to find them, hide them around the house. The Easter Bunny will have left some clues. All that good stuff. Yeah.
Do you do an Easter egg hunt for Sasha, Rossi?
Yeah, of course. I see behind Stu, he's got some Easter eggs there. Are they yours for just little treats, or are they?
Yeah.
They are. I don't know what those ones are.
Just surplus, just in case you need them.
I think,
why not?
I think my mum gave me those ones, but yeah, there's a few more down on the floor down there as well.
Nice.
Lots of chocolate.
Can I shock you? Chocolate is overrated.
What?
Ooh. Absolutely. Very overrated for me. Unless we're talking about Reese's, chocolate and peanut butter, or maybe some high-end artisanal chocolate.
No, that's overrated. Don't mess about with chocolate.
It's very overrated for me. Would not be high on my list of guilty pleasure foods, but then I am frequently left out in the cold when it comes to popular opinion. I'll just throw that in there. Don't get me started on Yorkshire puddings either, because that's got nothing to do with Easter. Right then, what has got to do with Easter, friends, is Wickham at home, Cheltenham away. Let's talk about that now, Stuart Watson, because Ipswich Town can tie their club record with 2 wins in these next 2 games. But I have to say, as ever, won't be easy, will it?
No. That will be the line going into these 2 games. I'm sure Kieran McKenna won't even entertain talking about Cheltenham when we speak to him tomorrow, because it's this one game at a time mantra, which is only correct. Not worrying about anybody else's form, not worrying about the league table. It's what we can do, and the way Ipswich are playing at the moment, no one will want to play them. There's a fear factor about Ipswich, no doubt about it at the moment. Wickham are a team that still can get in the playoffs. They're only 2 points off 6th. This looks like there's a 5-way fight for those bottom 2 playoff spots. The top 4 have gone, but you've got Bolton, Peterborough, Derby, Wickham and Portsmouth all scrambling to get 5th and 6th. But Wickham have not been the same Wickham since Gareth Ainsworth left. Matt Bloomfield, who I believe still lives in Felixstowe and was doing a bit of coaching at Ipswich before he went to take over as Colchester manager. Obviously a short-lived stay there, and then back to Wickham, a club where he's a proper club legend, to take over from Ainsworth. They've won 2, drawn 3, lost 3 since he took over in the middle of February, and they've got a lot of injuries at the moment. They've got people like Gareth McCleary, Sam Vokes, Jordan Abita all out. Mehmeti, massive player for them. They sold to Bristol City in January. Alfie Mawson, who played against Ipswich in the reverse fixture back in December. That ended up being the last game of his career. Unfortunately, he had to retire with a knee injury at the age of 29. So I looked at their team from the weekend. They drew 2-2 with MK Dons, and there's a bit of inexperience in there. They've got a young lad, Campbell, on the right, who's on loan from Wolves. That was only his 6th league start. Their number 10, Bar, that was only his 4th league start in senior football. So they're not this kind of gnarled, experienced, streetwise Wycombe Ainsworth team that we've seen, I would suggest, over the first few years in League One for Ipswich. I think they're probably a lesser side than when Ipswich faced them in December, and Ipswich are certainly a better side than the one that went and lost at Adams Park in the middle of December.
Rossi, obviously we don't know what's happening with Leif Davis. We'll find out tomorrow. But all things being equal, same team again. Just go again. Stick with the winning side.
Yeah, I'll go with that because why change a winning team? Winning formula and all that. If some players need, because we've got what's that in 2 games in 2 and 4. So maybe the Cheltenham game is where you make the changes. Sold out Portman Road. Once again, it's just there's no surprise now. Town fans are going to pack out every stand they can. I think Cheltenham's pretty sold out as well. So love that. But yeah, we need to do one over Wycombe because that was dreadful at Adams Park. It was cold. We had like 20 plus shots. They had a few. They scored from one of them. So we need to get revenge over Wycombe. So yeah, bring it on.
Ipswich was by far the better team in that game. It was another one of those examples. And you can say that actually about, I think, pretty much all the games that Ipswich have lost this season. Lincoln certainly deserved more from the Plymouth game. Oxford was obviously the fog situation, but Ipswich, were well on top in the opening stages of that game at Wycombe. Chaplin, for once, didn't take a good chance inside the box. The goal Ipswich conceded was dreadful. Hanlon, if you remember, kind of wriggled his way past Humphreys and Burgess, and Keogh couldn't get quite across to it. So that was a rubbish goal to concede. It was just one of those days of which there's not been many, but that was a good performance. And as I say, I look back at that team from that day, and that had people like Keogh played, Kane Vincent-Young played, Humphreys, Jackson, Ladapo. So Wycombe are going to be facing a very different Ipswich side this time around. It's impossible not to feel confident about Ipswich at the moment. We can talk about the opposition all we want. The way Ipswich are playing at the moment, they won't care who they face.
And as you say, Rossi, 28,500 people packed into Portman Road for a Good Friday game against Wycombe. That's just how we roll at the moment. I know you say let's not talk about the opposition too much, Stu, so let's not talk about Cheltenham too much. But of these 2 games, on paper, it feels like Cheltenham's going to be the harder game. In terms of form, they're right up there. Over the last 6 games, I think they're 4th in the form table, just like Town have had this morning. Christian Walton and Kieran McKenna both nominated in the League One March Awards. They've had a double nomination as well. How are you feeling about this one on Easter Monday?
Yeah, Cheltenham are 6 unbeaten. They've won 3-0 at Peterborough. During that time, they've been particularly strong at Whaddon Road. Yes, Barnsley went there and beat them 4-0 on their own patch in the middle of February. But since then, I think they've gone 5 games without a defeat at their home stadium. They were 2-0 up against Sheffield Wednesday recently. That finished 2-0. Alfie May scoring goals again, as he did last season. I think he's up to 16 now, of which quite a few have come in the last little run. So again, another game where Ipswich have want to take a bit of revenge and put something right. That was 1-1 at Portman Road. Looked like they'd done all the hard work when Luke Wolfenden scored very early on. Switched off a little bit. Goal against the run of play. That was when Christian Walton got beaten at his near post quite poorly by Ryan Broom. And Ipswich were all over them after that and just couldn't find a way through. So do you remember Kamara hit the post quite late on and Kyle Edwards bent a cross that was sort of inches away from Kamara. Again, another game where they had best part of 30 shots and loads of corners and all the possession, but couldn't see it over the line. So, again, you could argue that this could be a tricky game for Ipswich, given where Cheltenham are at. But if anyone's squad is built to kind of deal with the rigours of 2 games in 4 days over Easter, it's Ipswich's. Maybe that's a situation where, suddenly Freddie Ladapo gets the nod in one of these 2 games and they might have to freshen something up in midfield. I don't know how robust Luongo is going to be for this sort of period Jackson might suddenly get the nod for one of these games, but you wouldn't have any fears or qualms about any of those sort of players stepping in for these sort of matches, I don't think.
Rossi, how are you feeling about Cheltenham away?
Yeah, echo what Stu said. Yeah, we had 30 plus shots against them and just scored one. That was a frustrating afternoon at Porton Road that day. And yeah, they're really improved since then. I know this is their second season in League One and the second season syndrome, but I think they're pretty safe. So, but yeah, Alfie May scoring the goals. One thing I want to add, actually, I mentioned this on the fan social, but isn't it nice we actually have an Easter sort of weekend of football? Last time it was a Saturday against Rotherham on TV, then we had Wigan on Tuesday, but it's nice to actually have Good Friday, Easter Monday. It's not ruined anybody's plans this time around. Everyone can have a nice Good Friday at Porton Road, and if they are going to Cheltenham on Monday, they can have a nice Easter Monday watching football. Cheltenham Town, once again, we need to get one over them. We've never beaten them since we played them. We lost 2-1 back at their place last year. We then drew against them, Porton Road, last year as well. Of course, we drew early in the season, so we need to get one over them. Another record to be broken.
Is that a football fact? Town have never beaten Cheltenham.
Like in a professional sense, we may have beaten them in a friendly or something, but we only ever played them 3 times. So
I like it.
There you go.
That was the long throw game, wasn't it? Is it Tozer who went on to go to Wrexham? I forgot about that game very early on last season.
So Town could both tie a club record with 9 straight wins on Monday and also beat Cheltenham for the first time. Records tumbling left, right and centre. Can I push you for predictions now, boys? I want a double prediction here. I'm going to start with you, Rossi. Wycombe at home, Cheltenham away. What are you saying?
Are we going to concede? Not against Wycombe. I think that's going to be another 2-0. 2-0.
Tunnel.
Do you want Cheltenham as well?
I want Cheltenham now as well. Yeah, don't leave me hanging.
Sorry. We're going to beat them. Although that could be one of those games where they'll frustrate us, and we could.
Don't say a draw or a win. I want an actual prediction.
2-1. They'll score scrappy goal or something. So yeah, the clean sheet record will be gone. But 9 wins in a row, club record.
Tied for club record. It'd be interesting to see if and when they do concede another goal, assuming they will concede before the end of the season, how Walton reacts. Because I'd imagine the longer this goes on, the more proud he is of it, and the more angry he'll be when his line is finally breached.
I think the correct thing for the goalkeeper to do in that scenario is you've got to turn around and do the frustrated boot the ball back into your own goal after conceding. You don't see that enough in football anymore these days. That used to be a staple of things growing up. The goalkeeper would just lash the ball into the back of his own net in frustration. Are
we going to see that this weekend, Stewie? Is Christian Walton, is he finally going to concede? What do you think the scores are going to be?
We have got a roles reverse situation here. Ross has gone first, and I'm going to do I agree with Ross.
No, come on.
Situation.
No, literally, no one's ever said that.
I'm really confident about Friday. Famous last words, but I think Wycombe have got squad's a little bit stretched at the moment. Ipswich oozing confidence, backed by a home crowd. I think they'll win and keep the clean sheet run going. I think just to be different to Ross, I'll upgrade it to a 3-0, but I did have 2-0 in my mind. Mondays, it has got more of a potential banana skin situation. Less time to prepare, bit of travel, quick turnaround. I think the clean sheet record might go in that game, but I have to back Ipswich to keep going. So I'm going to go with Ross's prediction as well. I'll say 2-1 Ipswich.
Imagine that, boys. Next time we sit down and record, Ipswich Town would have won 9 games in a row if that comes to pass. After that terrible night on Valentine's Day at Bristol, to think they would then rip off 9 in a row. Football, bloody hell. I know I said it before, but it just sums it up, doesn't it? Anything else to mention, boys? We've done 55 minutes or so coming up on. Anything else to mention before we take our leave?
Shall I delete that article that we did at the time in the chat about what's gone wrong at Ipswich and dissecting everything that was... the
way I like to see that was the catalyst.
Okay.
That's what turned things around, and we should take credit for it. I mean, in all seriousness, that was entirely justified at the time. It makes us look a little bit silly now they've done what they've done. But in terms of at the time, 4 wins in 15, that's a lot of games, and things were not going well. It's easy to kind of sit here now on the back of 7 straight wins and forget that, but they weren't going well. And they've turned it around, and all credit to them. I wondered aloud if they were good enough, and they've put egg all over my face as it stands.
Yes, and it's never tasted so good. And seeing as
exactly.
I'm eating 40 eggs a week or whatever it is, more please. Keep bringing the egg.
Feed me more egg. Yeah, but of course the job is still to be done, Stu. They're still only third.
Yeah. And as we've seen, like, who would have thought Sheffield Wednesday were going to blow up the way they have? It just seemed unthinkable. It's very easy to fall into traps, as we said before. As one stage, Derby and Bolton looked completely unstoppable, and they faded away. I'm not saying that I think that's going to happen to Ipswich, because I think there's more substance about them, but I'm sure there will be some bumps in the road. I think I said before this run of games before Derby, I'd got them down to win 6, draw 2, lose 1 of the final 9, and I'd had Derby down as one as a draw, so they're slightly ahead of schedule on that. I still think it might be. I still think there'll be, at least a couple of results that they'll drop points in, but there'll be other twists and turns to come. But it's in their hands, which is just remarkable. It's in their hands now, and who knows what's going to happen to Plymouth now? After sounds like they got. It was a complete damp squib of a performance at Wembley. To lose 4-0 at Wembley Stadium, who knows what that's going to do to them in these coming weeks. I think 3 of their next 4 games are away from home. We know how good they are at home park, but that's a real tester of their mental strength in the next few weeks. Can Sheffield Wednesday get their act together and pull themselves together? Can Barnsley keep going the way they are? Because they're in equally good form to Ipswich at the moment. Exciting times.
I made a spectacular Horlicks boys on Sunday on the note of Barnsley. I did a little roundup race for the top 2. What happened on Saturday? Who the next games are? I said Barnsley are unbeaten since January. Completely forgetting, of course, they lost last week to Exeter. In my defence, I was high on morphine at the time. But thank you for the guy who pointed that out on Twitter with a little sneer. But yes, that was quite a Horlicks I made. Clearly, they lost last week. Roscoe, driving. Where are we?
To be confirmed.
What? That's not. What
Although I've been told by my young prospect in Regan, he's passed his theory test, so he's now in front of me.
No.
So
if that's not the motivation required, Ross, come on.
Here's my concern. I worry. I don't know about you, Stu. I worry that Ross is surrounded by enablers. Liam drives him everywhere. He's got no real motivation to pass his test when Liam's just basically his chauffeur. Yeah. I think we need people to be cruel to be kind. Say to Ross, "Sorry, mate, you're on your own. You got to get yourself around now."
What about whenever we take Ross to games, we drop him off like 5 miles away from the stadium every time until you've passed your theory, mate? You've got to walk the last 5 or the last 3 or something.
Yeah. I do worry, Ross, that you're too comfortable in just being driven around everywhere.
Well, I'm not saying comfortable. I'm just like, I can't pass the bloody theory test. So yeah, I've got another one booked next week. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Another opportunity to go live to the test centre. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
So Regan has passed his theory already.
Yeah, that's his second. That was his second attempt. So yeah,
wow.
Yeah. That's Regan right now.
Is it? Just telling you, I've actually passed my test now, Ross. Do you want to lift?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Okay. Well, you got to take some motivation from that, Rossi. We've got to turn these things around. And Liam, stop driving Ross everywhere. Make him look after himself.
He's driving the 5-a-side tonight. Sorry, he's driving the 5-a-side. If he is listening,
Liam, just say sorry, Ross. Call to be kind. No more lifts for you. You've got to learn to become independently mobile. It's for your own good, mate. Honestly, let's be honest. Right then, friends, that brings us to the end of an hour-long festival of fun. I should mention, of course, Hutchie having a well-earned rest on holiday somewhere sunny as we speak. And I believe he's having a wonderful time despite the sun. I don't know if he's got ice packs strapped to his back or what, but he's enjoying himself. So he'll miss the game on Friday. He'll be back for Easter Monday, rested, recharged, tanned, no doubt, Just a reminder, friends, to support our sponsors. Use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. Get yourself one of these new Weed Whacker 2.0s if you're the old nasal hair and the ear hair needs sorting. Your tragus can finally be sorted now, Stu. Now you've got one of those.
Yeah, that might be my afternoon job. I haven't got it out of the box yet, so I'll give you a review next time.
A whole afternoon? That must be a seriously hairy tragus.
Yeah, a whole afternoon.
And also, obviously, support Ginger Pickle, our other sponsor, our lovely sponsor. Ginger Pickle. If you like your pickle ginger, Google Ginger Pickle. Help with your Google ads. There's Stewie working out which side his logo's on there on his top. Digital marketing, SEO, whatever, all that kind of good stuff. Tony Southgate and his team will sort you right out. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes as well if you've not. We've got some good ones recently, particularly praising Hutch's wisdom seems to be the main theme at the moment. Hutch's wisdom and also introducing people to EDAM have been the subject of our last 3 5-star reviews. And obviously, follow us across social media, Kings of Angor, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Anything else to mention, friends, before we get on with our day and I see if I can bend my leg?
No other business.
All done.
Done. Right then, friends. Podcast is in the books. Ipswich Town have a chance to tie a club record that's stood since the glory days, the halcyon days of Sir Bobby over this Easter weekend. Follow it all with us, and we'll be back next week to break it down, whatever happens. Have a great Easter. Eat lots of chocolate, even though it's overrated. And we'll be back next week to talk again.